Everything is falling apart. The woman who once smiled at you now looks at you like you're a stranger. The home you built together suddenly feels cold, heavy, hollow. And the words you never thought she'd say are hovering right behind her lips. I'm done. I want space. I can't do this anymore. She doesn't yell. She doesn't cry. She doesn't explain. She just disconnects. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And you're terrified. You feel like you're losing your entire world in slow motion. You're watching the life you built crumble, brick by brick, while you're desperately trying to hold it all together with your bare hands. So you panic. You start talking more. You start apologizing more. You start reminding her of memories you cherish but she no longer feels. You do everything every relationship expert online told you to do. Open up emotionally. Tell her how much she means to you. Show vulnerability. Ask her what she needs. Reassure her of your love. Try to fix everything immediately. And every single thing you try makes it worse. You think you're fighting for your marriage. To her, it looks like you're suffocating the last bit of respect she has left. She pulls away. You chase harder. She goes silent. You talk more. She asks for space. You try to negotiate. She detaches. You cling. It's a trap. A psychological trap every panicked husband falls into, and it never works. Because here's the brutal truth. Once a woman emotionally checks out, the man she's leaving cannot talk her back into loving him. Every word he says feels like pressure. Every emotional confession feels like weakness. Every promise feels manipulative. You're operating from fear. She's operating from certainty. And when fear meets certainty, certainty always wins. Listen very carefully, because everything you think you should do right now is the exact thing that is destroying your last chance to save this relationship. You've been conditioned to believe. Communication fixes everything. Express your emotions. Tell her how you feel. Show her you care. Let her see you hurting. Wrong. Painfully, disastrously, catastrophically wrong. In this specific stage of the relationship. When she's irritated by you. When her nervous system reacts to you with tension instead of warmth. When she's already fantasizing about a life without you. Your feelings are gasoline. Every emotional conversation is an explosion. Every attempt to fix things confirms what she already believes. You're needy. You're weak. You're lost. You think you're showing love. She hears desperation. You think you're opening your heart. She feels pressure. You think you're fighting for the family. She feels trapped. You think you're reminding her of what you had. She's already rewritten it in her mind, and the version she remembers doesn't match yours. And this is the part no one tells men. When a woman reaches emotional detachment, she is not thinking logically anymore. She is rewriting the past, romanticizing the future, and convincing herself that leaving will save her. You cannot argue with that emotional reality. You cannot reason her out of a decision she didn't make with logic. You cannot guilt her, appeal to her conscience, or force her to remember the good moments. Because right now, she isn't operating from memory. She's operating from relief. Relief from the emotional heaviness. Relief from the resentment she's been carrying silently. Relief from the version of you she feels she outgrew. And every tear you shed, every apology you give, every promise you make, only confirms to her that she was right. Because in her mind, the man in front of her isn't the man she fell in love with. He's a collapsing version of him, scared, confused, desperate. She doesn't want to save you. She wants to escape you. This is the harshest part of all. Women do not leave when they stop loving. Women leave when they stop respecting. And nothing kills respect faster than a man who pleads, explains, justifies, apologizes endlessly, asks for reassurance, tries to negotiate love, breaks down emotionally, promises to change overnight. To her, it looks like you're trying to drag her back into a life she's already stepped out of. And the more you try to pull her in, the more aggressively she will run. This is why so many men fail in this moment. Not because they're bad husbands, but because they're operating from panic instead of strategy. She's not leaving because of one fight. She's leaving because of a narrative she's built in her mind over months, sometimes years. A story where you are the problem. A story where she's the victim or the martyr. A story where leaving you is the only path to peace. You cannot break that story by talking. Talking is what solidified it. Now listen closely. There's a way to stop this spiral. A way to regain her respect. A way to interrupt the narrative in her mind. A way to make her feel uncertainty again. A way to make her question the decision she feels so confident about. But it starts with doing the opposite of everything you've been doing. Not partially. Not slowly. Not in small doses. Completely. Immediately. And without explaining yourself. That's where everything begins. And in the next part, we go into the first step you must take. The step that flips her psychology instantly. But right now, understand this. The man she wants back is not the man you are in this panic. The man she wants back is the one you used to be, before fear erased him. And if you want even the slightest chance to save this marriage, that man has to return. Not through words, but through action, identity, and silence. Before you can win her back, you need to understand something that almost no man realizes. Your wife didn't leave today. She left long before she ever said the words. By the time a woman announces she's done, she has already lived through the breakup in her mind dozens of times. She's rehearsed it. She's justified it. She's built a case for it. She's rewritten years of memories to support it. Men break down suddenly. Women break down slowly, and then leave suddenly. You're just arriving at the starting line of a race she's been running silently for months. And that's why everything you do right now feels useless. Because you're talking to a version of her that no longer exists. You're pleading with a woman who already grieved the relationship long before you even realized it was dying. And here's the part that feels like a knife to the chest. The man she thinks she's leaving is not the man you actually are. It's the version of you she created in her mind, piece by piece, irritation by irritation, disappointment by disappointment. Once that version becomes solid, once she decides who you are, everything you do gets filtered through that lens. You apologize, she hears excuses. You explain, she hears manipulation. You cry, she sees weakness. You promise, she sees desperation. You reminisce, she feels trapped. You ask questions, she feels annoyed. You try to fix things, she feels pressured. You show love, she feels suffocated. You're not talking to your wife. You're talking to the story she's been telling herself. And stories don't change from arguments. Stories change from shocks. Psychological shocks. Interruptions. Disruptions. And that's exactly what needs to happen. Because right now, everything about you is predictable. Predictability breeds contempt. Contempt kills attraction. She already knows the script. She shuts down. You plead, she gets irritated. You ask questions, she sighs. You break down, she feels disgust. She runs. You are not a mystery. You are not a challenge. You are not a possibility. You are a conclusion she thinks she already reached. But here's the turning point. The only way to win back a woman who's emotionally done is to shatter the version of you she thinks she knows. Not through speeches. Not through emotional confessions. Not through promises of change. Through a full psychological pattern break. The first rule is simple. White heavy checkmark rule number 1. Agree with everything. Calmly. Completely. Coldly. This is not weakness. This is the removal of the battlefield. When you stop fighting, she loses her weapon. When you stop arguing, she loses her justification. When you stop reacting, she loses her control. You're not surrendering. You're removing the emotional fuel that keeps her narrative alive. And here's why this devastates her psychology. She's expecting resistance. She's expecting explanations. She's expecting desperation. She's expecting the old you. But the old you doesn't show up. Instead, she gets someone she can't predict. And unpredictability wakes something inside her she thought was dead. Curiosity. Confusion. Uncertainty. You don't debate her. You don't defend yourself. You don't explain. You don't justify. You don't chase. You simply say, I understand. I hear you. You might be right. If that's what you feel, I respect it. steady, grounded. The second rule hits even harder. White heavy checkmark rule number 2, reverse every behavioral pattern she expects from you. If you were clingy, become unavailable. If you were emotional, become contained. If you were predictable, become unpredictable. If you were always home, start going out. If you were passive, make decisions silently. If you were needy, detach completely. If you were always attentive, become busy. If you were a routine, become a storm. Not fake. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just different. A man she no longer recognizes. A man she cannot categorize. A man who forces her to reassess everything she thought she knew. Because when her mental model collapses, so does her certainty. And when her certainty collapses, her emotional defenses crack open. This is the moment, the only moment, where attraction can be rebuilt. But here's the part most men don't expect. When you start changing, when you start reversing the patterns, when you stop chasing, she will get angry. She'll accuse you. She'll test you. She'll poke at you. She'll become cold or chaotic. Not because she hates you, because she's terrified you're no longer the man she could control emotionally. That old version of you, the predictable, desperate, emotional man, is dying. And she doesn't know who's replacing him. That uncertainty is the seed of everything you want. Respect, attraction, interest, curiosity, reconnection. But none of that comes without resistance. A woman doesn't fight when she's done with you. A woman fights when she's noticing change that threatens her narrative. Your job isn't to react. Your job isn't to explain. Your job isn't to calm her or comfort her. Your job is simple. Stay unshakable. Stay unpredictable. Stay detached. Not because you're playing a game, but because you're becoming the man she stopped believing you could be. There comes a moment in every collapsing marriage when the ground finally stops shaking, not because things are better, but because you've stopped collapsing with it. And that's the moment she notices. Not when you cry. Not when you beg. Not when you explain. Not when you plead for another chance. She notices when you stop fighting for her and start fighting for yourself. Because here's the truth no man wants to hear. Winning your wife back has nothing to do with her. It has everything to do with the man you become when you lose her. And that's where this final transformation begins. For months, maybe years, she lived in a reality where she believed she had you mapped out, decoded, figured out like a simple formula. Predictable, emotional, dependent, grasping, safe in the worst possible way, the way that kills attraction. But now she sees something she didn't expect. You aren't trying anymore. You aren't explaining anymore. You aren't proving anything anymore. You're moving. Without her permission. Without her validation. Without her approval. Without her as your emotional oxygen. And this terrifies her more than the thought of losing you ever terrified you. Because losing a man who collapses without her is easy. But losing a man who thrives without her? That shakes her to her core. At first, she'll try to pull you back into the script. The old dance where she leads and you react. She'll ask confusing questions, throw out emotional bait, test you with mixed signals. Why are you acting like this? Are you seeing someone? Why don't you care anymore? Have you stopped loving me? Why aren't you asking me how I feel? Why didn't you tell me where you were? Why are you so calm about all of this? She's not asking because she's curious. She's asking because she's losing control of the narrative. You were supposed to fall apart. You were supposed to break. You were supposed to beg. You were supposed to make her feel wanted, needed, powerful. Instead, you walked out of the chaos untouched. You became someone she doesn't recognize, someone she can't predict, can't command, can't emotionally corner. And now she's the one who feels unstable. Just like that, the polarity flips. Her certainty becomes confusion. Her anger becomes anxiety. Her distance becomes attention. Her irritation becomes curiosity. Her coldness becomes pursuit. But here's the moment that separates the men who win from the men who collapse. When she finally comes back. Softly at first, then more boldly. Most men break. They think, it's working. I got her back. I can relax now. And that's the final fatal mistake. Because the second you slip back into who you used to be, the second you relax, the second you show neediness, the second you chase again, you prove that the new version of you was only an act. And the contempt that comes from that realization is permanent. She won't just leave you again. She will never trust a single change you make again. Her mind will close, and no method on earth will reopen it. So you have one job in this final phase. White heavy checkmarks stay transformed. Not for her. For you. The predictable man is gone. The desperate man is gone. The emotional wreck is gone. The apologetic boy is gone. What remains is a man rebuilt from the fire. Unshakable. Independent. Unpredictable. Focused. Grounded. A man who doesn't need a woman to complete him, but chooses her if she shows the same strength, character, and stability he had to develop through hell. Because here's the real twist. Sometimes, once you've changed, once you've rebuilt yourself, once you've shed the emotional dependencies and old habits, you look at her with clear eyes and realize you don't actually want her back. Not the woman she was. Not the woman she became when she checked out. Not the woman who left mentally long before she left physically. You want partnership, not a rescue mission. Respect, not emotional dominance. Reciprocity, not conditional affection. And whether she returns or not, you win. Because the point of this whole process was never about getting her back. It was about killing the weaker, reactive version of you who made losing her possible. It was about becoming a man who no longer begs for a place in someone's life, but stands tall enough that people want a place in his. So here's the truth. You don't win back your wife by saving the relationship. You win her back by saving yourself. And that transformation is the one thing she never saw coming. And the one thing she can't ignore. Whether she returns or watches you walk away forever, the man you become is the victory.